This is scary. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm back, bitches! I guess you wondering where I've been. I guess you wondering where I've been. Brother, dead again. Anyway, I decided to come back because it's summer break. And I got this cool idea to wash dishes and record. Because what chore we all hate the most, I'm not even looking at the camera. The chore we hate the most is to wash the dishes. So I got my bowls here in my sink. I'm going to take them out. And we're going to talk about teaching get any better for me. Because I. I'm sorry to make a lot of noise. You can't hear me. Because I remember in my first year teaching, one of the most common phrases, and you know, I'm African American. I like to clean my sinks before I wash the dishes.
2 hours later.
We're gonna talk about did it get any better? On my first year teaching, I was very stressed. Okay, you can watch the video. I'll pin it right here probably, so you can go and watch it. I was 21 years old. I just gotten my bachelor's degree in education. I had re-enrolled in school to get my master's in reading to stay on my parents' insurance because at the time you needed to be in college or what was the rule? You have to be in college or be 26 or something. I stayed on my mom's insurance that first year. She did eventually cut me off because she retired after that first year. And I had to pay all my own bills then. That's when I was like, okay, this is too much. They said, oh, Darnell, it gets easier. It gets better. I promise. Just stick it out. And so I'm here to answer that question. No. One kiss is all it takes. I taught through the pandemic. I taught multiple grades. And now I'm a dyslexia therapist as I study for my ALTA exam. I become a certified academic language therapist, which is exciting. You see Leanne right there. I do hate telling people what I do right with my life because anytime they ask me, they say, oh, well, I switch my B's and my P's. Am I dyslexic? And I'm like, I don't know, but you want me to test you right here on the street?
Bombastic side eye, criminal offensive side eye.
I'm like, it's people out here with real dyslexia, and you telling me you reversing your P's and B's. On a good day, I reverse my B's and D's, and my name starts with a D. So I just tell people, I'm a teacher. And then they always go into, what do you teach? And I was like, oh God, I teach dyslexia therapy. That's when they want to ask all these doggone questions. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? You want to pull out the gourd? You want me to test you right now? You want to pull out the KTEA3? You want me to test you? Want me to give you level 2 assessments? And let me start myself. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm just showing out today. This is so unlike me to show out. Let me get my stopper. I got a cheap stopper. I need to buy a better one. And I know you can't see me washing dishes, which will be the appeal of this video, but you can hear it, right? And I guess there'll be ASMR. You can put it on while you drive and just listen to me talk. So after my first year teaching, we talked about me leaving. And when I left that district, I swore off teaching I swore off teaching forever. And so I applied to every store possible. I applied to Target, Barnes and Noble, Walmart, and me and Walmart don't have a good history because I worked there for 2 weeks and I didn't come back. Oh, this is a fly. I'm sorry.
Oh my God, what is that? Oh my God, what is that?
I was a no call, no show. Because I was just there for a check. I was there for my water, some check, and do whatever you tell me to do, and go home. I wasn't doing no extras. And when they was doing all that extra stuff, I said, Walmart ain't for me. Barnes and Nobles, but you would think That'd be a good job for me. I didn't think about applying to the library, but I could. It was July. I was desperate. I had gotten my last paycheck from that school, and I had rent, which at the time was $695. It had cable, lights, water, all those things included. I was making $900 every 2 weeks. $999 every 2 weeks. And I had a brand new car because I was in denial about how much teachers actually make, because what is on the website is not the same thing as what you get after taxes. I tell my students that all the time. They always think, oh, well, you get this much money on the website. It says you get the blah, 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 100,000. I do not, boo. I do not, boo. I only get a portion of that. Most of my stuff go to taxes. I mean, I probably pay more taxes than our current president.
I need water. Help me. I need water. Help.
I started to apply at school districts. The first school district I applied for, of course, they said no, and that's okay. And then the second school district I applied for, I was ready. I had went to Pocket Full of Primary. She told me what to do. I had my classroom management plan in place. I had put together a binder. I went into the interview. I was nervous, and I put a picture somewhere here of what I looked like at that interview. I was shaking. I just couldn't sit still. And the principal at the time was this lady, and she was like, oh, you're a perfect candidate for this job. What grade would you like to teach? And I said, well, since I've taught 5th and 6th grade, it'll be a logical conclusion for me to just move up to 7th grade, because that's just the year above where I was. Okay. But God had other plans. In August, and that's when I found out that I would not be teaching 7th grade. I would be teaching 10th grade. Oh boy, I was sweating bullets. I was stressed to the max. Do you hear me? I was like, 10th grade. I'm only 22 years old. These kids the same age as my sister. But she said, you can do it. And I believed I could. And I called my old English teacher, who you could thank her daughter for this video, because she has been pushing me to do these kind of videos again so people can hear my stories. I called her and I said, hey, I'm teaching 10th grade. Could you possibly give me some advice? And she told me everything to do. She was like, have rules on the board. And anytime a kid break the rules, you point at the rule thing and you say, this is my classroom rule. You're not going to break it. We went over the books I could work with, and they were pretty heavy. It was 1984, Julius Caesar, Of Mice and Men, which is my favorite. We'll talk about that later. I get there and I do all the things I think I'm supposed to do, decorating my classroom, and of course things aren't ready. I don't have the proper seating. I have a class of 30, which I'll talk about later. It was a big scary thing. I was sweating bullets. I was in the suit. Well, I got my Apple Watch thing in the same. Lord have mercy. I went to the first day of school and I had on my suit. You know, these kids are bigger than me. I was 120 pounds then. And most of these kids have been playing football since they were born, because it's the South. Principal was like, y'all need to surround these kids and watch them. Some guy act like y'all scared. Unbeknownst to her, I was afraid, okay? I'm like, I don't know if I can do this.
You don't want to do your room, you don't want to do housework, you don't want to do yard work, and I just want you to stay here just for a little while.
It's a lot more pressure. First day, it went well. I had some issues. I did have kids bucking. I had a student that was 20 to be exact, so we were very close in age. When I got there were a bunch of kids that were failing English. 10th grade English, so they were taking multiple Englishes. They were taking 12th, 11th, and 10th grade English, and I don't understand why they did that. English should be accessible. But anyway, that's my philosophy. But this is my bacon grease. I'm sorry. Out of all the trouble I had, for the first time in my career that I could do it, because for the failures I had that year, I had many successes. And I got to meet some of my closest friends outside of college at that school, and we hung out regularly, and that really made it easier for me to cope with teaching. Now, it was the other people that made me leave that school eventually, but that's the story, right? So let me tell you about some students that made an impact on me. Maybe like the second week of school. I don't know. We had BA days. So my fourth period B day was a class of 30 kids, right? And I think it was over that at some point. And this class had every issue you could think of: drugs, teen pregnancy, violence, uh, truancy. And whenever the court date come, they would end up arresting a few of the kids and they wouldn't come into class. And I was like, oh, okay, they got arrested. This particular class, they put a girl in there and she was flirting with this guy while I was in the middle of instruction. And I said, no, I can't let that happen because my rules say, don't talk while I'm talking. You got to be bad, got to be hard. So I look at her and I said, can you please stop talking while I'm talking? That girl looked at me like I was short. She looked me down like that. She did me just like that. And she said, I was like, I was taken aback. I said, what you mean the you gonna be quiet because I told you to be quiet. And then one of the students kindly came up to me and they said, Mr. Rancifer, don't say nothing to her because she just got out of jail because she stabbed her other teacher, tried to stab her other teacher. I was like, I'm gonna get stabbed at this school. Well, she ended up going to jail and everything was all right. She did something I couldn't quite remember, and yeah, she didn't come back. But that's okay. I had a handful in what I was dealing with. I started teaching in the age of you create all the material yourself. TPT was starting to take off because schools weren't adopting new textbooks. There was no curriculum from the old textbooks. And so I kind of had to make it up, and it was very stressful because my teaching internship wasn't really very hands-on. I didn't really know how to teach, but one thing I could do was I could put together a PowerPoint slide. So I failed them a lot. I will say that. But in my failure, I was able to see some of the brightest kids that I have ever worked with. A lot of them have went on to become doctors and teachers and lawyers and work in corporate America. And I am so proud because that's every teacher's dream. But the one student I think that impacted me the most, impacted my career, was my student that was on Jerry Springer. The one that was 20 years old. He had quit his job and he got on an episode of Jerry Springer. And I remember we sat there, not me, but all of the teachers sat there and we watched that episode of Jerry Springer in the hallway.
You're about to meet a man who lives his life as though he were a 2-year-old baby. No kidding, he calls the woman he's married to his mommy.
And we were just so excited because this little podunk town where Walmart was supposed to be, you wouldn't think that kids like that have a lot of opportunities because kids at those kind of schools, what some people call Title I rural schools, they don't have a lot of opportunities to dream and to do well and to be something. They had the potential to be whatever they wanted to be. I had this lunch period and I had these 3 football players. And my first interaction with them when they walked through the door is, we have an IEP and you have to follow it. And I was like, okay. Like, I hadn't even introduced myself. Hi, I'm Mr. Rancifer. We had it out. I mean, one of the kids will take his MacBook and he will play. I'll never forget. This is when Boosie came out. He had cancer and Kevin Gates came out of jail. And he's like, I had 2 phones, one for the down, one for the, that song. And so he would play that as loud as possible. And you could hear it down the hallway. And I couldn't tell him to stop. I couldn't tell him to put on headphones because he was so obstinate. Finally, I was in the middle of teaching Julius Caesar. They wasn't paying attention. And I don't blame them. Who would be paying attention? Because Shakespeare is hard. If you can't read on 11th to 12th grade level, the Shakespeare is especially difficult. It's also difficult because of the context it's set in. Like, it's irrelevant to what kids are kind of experiencing today. So you have to bridge the gap. So I was taught to teach Shakespeare by breaking down each line. Like, you read a line, you read a scene, and then you break down what each character said. That's how we were taught to teach it. They got new methods now, but and for the most part that worked. I showed a few clips as we went along from the PBS version. I think at the time it was like a black Nigerian version. I showed them their version. But we were in the middle of that, and they were clowning, they were cutting up. I mean, something serious. Nobody could focus. And so finally I was like, you know what? I had enough. Y'all can get out. And they was like, what? What? We ain't gonna get out. And we was just arguing, we were back and forth. I was like, get out of my room. You're not gonna behave. You're not learning. You're distracting the other kids. You could just go into the office. And I was scared. Because our principal did not back us up in that way, okay? But I had to write up. You know, I emailed her and I told her, hey, I'm sending these kids to class, yada, yada, yada. And they said, you know what, we gonna tell what you've been doing in here, yada, yada, yada. I said, you go ahead and tell. I don't care. You gonna get out of this room. And they did. They got up and they left and they slammed the door or whatever, and they went to the principal's office like I told them she was expecting them. And she did give my ISS, I will say that. But you know the bad part about that? I had to go second period and watch ISS for 30 minutes. And so while I'm sitting in ISS, the kids balling up spitballs and throwing them at me, spitting them at me. And I'm sitting here like, you already in trouble. You already in ISS. What more can I do?
All I ask is when you lay your head on that pillow at night, you know, I gave you everything I had.
You did.
I gave you everything I had.
Like, what do you want me to say? Like, it was just immature. They came back, but I will say they came back better. They respected me a little bit more. I'm trying to think of some other stories that I had from the story. You know, when I was a child, my grandma used to make me wash the dishes, and I would abhor it. I mean, all of my uncles were teenagers, and they never had to wash dishes, and we always had to wash dishes. And so I would I would let her water run 30, 45 minutes while I was washing dishes, because I was like, you're not gonna make me wash the dishes and not pay for it. I took that Ajax soap and I ran that cheap soap down the sink with all of that water, and I said, I hope her water bill be high. And she can't get me now because she gone on to glory. So she can't get me now. So I could tell it. But I wouldn't dare tell her that I did that while she was alive. You know, some stuff you just can't tell people. Woo! Was it better than my first year experience? Absolutely not. I knew the expectations of a classroom when I walked into this. And every year I picked something new to work on. So the first year I was just trying to survive. The second year I worked on my curriculum. The third year then I worked on my classroom management. And then that was my last year there, and I went to another school. So yeah. The kids didn't make me feel overwhelmed. They were a lot at times, but the kids themselves did not make me feel overwhelmed. In fact, what I loved about that school is that it was a strong sense of community. And I got to teach siblings, and I met the parents. And once I met the parents, I kind of became a part of the community. Even though I lived like 45 minutes away from the town, I lived in Jonesboro, and I drove 45 minutes every day. And I got IBS, by the way, so many days I had diarrhea. It wasn't them per se. It was just the money was an issue. I was driving 45 minutes each way. I was also going to school at night for my reading classes, because back then, it wasn't even that long ago, but back then they didn't have online classes. So I had to go to class at least 2 nights a week, and I was there till 9. So I was exhausted. I was burnt out, and I wanted to make more money. That's basically all it was. And I did not get a job at Jonesboro. My friend, she got a job at Jonesboro, and she wasn't going to work there. She wanted to work in this small town. And I was like, no, you're going to teach here. You're going to come to this interview. And she got the job. I didn't. 1 year, I got an interview. And I went to the interview, and I thought it went well. Well, we don't talk about the details. But I found out one person in admin was saying mean things about me on the phone and recommend me for no hire. I went to the superintendent because you don't let nobody step over you like that. Because at schools, they will do that. They will invalidate you. They will dismiss you, belittle you. So to the superintendent, I said, look, I said, the principal is saying these things on the phone about me, and it's kind of hurting my reputation because they all know, all principal superintendents know each other. I don't know how they know. And I said, when I walk into an interview, I have to prove first that I'm a good person, okay? Because what people see about me is my skin color. And people real iffy about, we have biases built in, have issues with learning or whatever. I don't know what they think. My therapist said I personalize things too much, and I can see that in my thought process here. But I said it takes a lot for me to get a job over my counterparts. School ended up getting a lawyer, whatever. We're going to talk about that. I ain't going to get to all that. But I knew it was time for me to go. And I finally got a job here in this district. It was extremely hard to get a job there because it's a very popular district. But I got a job after my first interview, and I was so happy. And then boom, the pandemic happened. Because I'm almost done with my dishes. I got my baking pan cleaned up. But the complicated answer to a simple question is no, it didn't get better. I got better, right? The stress was still the same. I learned how to manage it. The isolation and the loneliness, I made friends. I joined the community. I would attend the football games. I would go to basketball games. I would make sure I was an active part of the community. I would DJ the dances we had at homecoming, and that kind of helped with the ice. They want me to talk about lunch duty. I didn't have lunch duty. I had morning duty. Morning duty was rough. One thing I learned about teenagers is they wear a hoodie when it's 100 degrees outside, and that's okay. I get it. It's probably insecurity. I do it too sometimes. But they don't understand weather. So if it's cold outside, if it's below 40 degrees, they have to go sit in the cafeteria. And it was such a chore to get them to do that. But one of the craziest things that I witnessed on morning duty was a girl who got suspended, and her mom came up there the next day to drop her daughter off to fight another girl, and it was a big brawl, and I'm standing there aghast. I'm like, and the principal looking at us like we supposed to break it up, and I'm like, ma'am, have you read my contract? I don't know if I'm supposed to be breaking up fights. High school fights were different. You had to be ahead of it, okay? Because once them strong, angry kids start fighting, baby, you better move out the way because you will be getting hit. I've seen it so many times in my career. I've been teaching 11 years, and one thing I know for a fact is those kids are strong and they angry, okay? And they will knock you between the washer and the dryer. And I just don't have time. So if I knew a fight was brewing, I did my best to be proactive and not reactive, because my tiny little body at 120 pounds back then, I couldn't even break up for 2 fleas that were fighting down the street. How you think I'm gonna fight 2 football players that bench press 300 pounds getting ready for college? You don't.
We don't want to be here. We didn't ask for this.
Sorry. I love teaching, and teaching is it's a life calling. I could do it outside of the school system, right? But it's also a job. And I'm a millennial, baby. I'll leave a job. A job ain't nothing to me. I'll leave. But with any job, you just know when it's time to go. You grow out of being comfortable. You become uncomfortable. And I think that's how I know it's time for me to move on, because I become agitated, irritated with things, unreasonable, and I just kind of know I'm uncomfortable. God's ready for me to move on, to go somewhere else, and it's time. I know it's time. So I want to know, for those of you who are in teaching or work any kind of job, how do you know when it's time to leave a job? Do you find a better job first? I did my first year. Do you become stressed and overwhelmed, and then you start applying and looking for other jobs, and then once you get secure another job, you quit? No, y'all, these dishes are done. They done. I'm just drying them. I'm just here to keep you entertained, baby. I'm just here to keep you entertained. I just would like to know how y'all jobs experiences are, because I'm down here in the South, and most of my students subscribe to these videos, and a lot of them are working now. And I'd like to know, how has your experiences changed from being in school to joining the job market? I know I stepped into a completely different world when I started teaching, and when the pandemic happened, the world changed again. And wow, has it changed for what I feel like is the worst. I'm gonna try to be consistent with this. I'll find some other tasks to do, and I'll update you. I'll give you some more teaching stories that I have. And I'll talk about my other district that I worked in for 1 year. So be sure you comment, you can just give me a heart. Let me know if you like this format of video. If you want more, if you want more, you can comment, do whatever. I'll interact with you. I'm on summer break. I don't have nothing else to do with my life, okay? So you just let me know what you want from me, and I will do it. I think will be more interesting if I talk about what the pandemic felt like, because that was so niche. That was niche for me to to teach, and it made me a reader. We'll talk about that. All right, so like, subscribe, comment. Do you, boo? Do you? I ain't here to make you do anything. I'm just here to talk. We here to have a friendly conversation, friend. That's all we here to do. I'm not here to pressure you to do nothing you don't want to do. So if you don't want to do it, don't do it. And so I'm done with my dishes. All I have to do is clean the sink again, because I'm African American, and I like to clean the sink after and before, and I like to clean off my cabinets, and they need some cleaning, trust me. And I'll see you later.